Hello, welcome to The Exhausted Programmer. My name is Alexander, and today we're talking more about Bash. In the first video, we took a look at creating and deleting, moving and copying files and folders, as well as a few other just basic things in Bash, just to show that it is easy to use and easy to learn. Today we continue focusing on the easy side while we do things such as understanding our computer and our files, as we continue to wrap up the complexities with Bash one step at a time. The first thing I want to do is to make sure that we know where we are, which is to say our directory. We can get the full route with pwd. We can also see what is in this directory with ls, two things that can help us understand our location. The first program I want to look at helps us to understand the files that we see in our directory. The program itself is called file. We give it a file name and it'll tell us some information about the file. Test.txt was one created in the Bash Ubuntu system, which is why it is just an ASCII text, whereas simple was created on a Windows machine that is outside of the Bash window, and that's why it has a little extra information with the CRLF line terminators. That doesn't necessarily mean it was created on a Windows machine, but it's a good indication. For things that aren't text files, it will give us more information. So if we look at screenshot, we'll see that it's a PNG file. It has a resolution and a little bit more information. For things that we really have no idea what it could mean, file DaVinci Resolve, which is something I grabbed from my Windows desktop. And we see that it is a Windows shortcut. This will open up the DaVinci Resolve program, which is what I use to edit my videos. You might think that the extensions on these files tells us that same information, but extensions can lie. If we take a look at lemon.mp3, you might think it's a song, but actually no, it's just another text file. We can know stuff about the files in our directory, but what about the computer that we're on? There's a program called uname, and it tells us that we are on a Linux machine, which doesn't seem very helpful, but we can actually get all the information from uname using the -a. And here we see both the operating system, the name of the computer, and more information, including the version of the kernel, which is this right here. This is just how Microsoft names this kernel. Also things about the architecture as well. If we want to know a little bit more about these specifics, we can do man uname or --help for a shorter version of it. And we can see that it's able to tell us all these things, and we can, then give those arguments to kind of see exactly what each one of these things might mean. Now, just in case you want that same information or a slightly different information in a more aesthetically pleasing view, there is neofetch, which tells us again the operating system, the kernel version, also uptime, and a few other bits of information that might be interesting. We can get more information on this computer to look at what processes are running using a program called top, which this is a very short list because I am running Bash on Windows and it is not running an entire operating system's worth of commands. If you run this on a Linux machine, you'll see a lot more. And again, we have options here where we can see a little bit of different information with htop. With htop, we can see a bar for each one of our processor cores, as well as memory usage and swap usage, not just bars, but also actual numbers. And again, the same list of processes that are running. Again, being a Bash on Windows, there's not a lot here, but we can also see options at the bottom that shows us how we can search and filter things we could do in top, but things that are a little bit more obvious here in htop. Obviously, a computer can do a lot more than just monitor itself. We can get some very simple programs out of the way that will be useful later, such as getting the date. Here you can see that it is Sunday, August 4th here, and I'm in the central time zone. If you want, you can also get this as a calendar by just running cal. And here we see again August 2024 and the date. If we run some arguments with it, like -3 is one that's built in. It shows us the previous and the next month. But if you just want to see the next two, there is another argument, -a, and you can give it a number, and it will give you that many months after the current month. There are more options that can be found in the man pages. Another very useful command is cat. With cat, you can give it a file name and it will put out the contents of that file name. We saw earlier that lemon.mp3 was actually a text file and not an mp3. And there we go, we see a recipe here. Now you might wonder what would happen if we gave cat something that wasn't a text file. we have screenshot right here, and we'll see a bunch of garbage put to the screen. Anytime I see something like this, I'm a little concerned that maybe my text interpreter is messed up or something. So you can just reset the terminal by typing in the word reset and hitting enter, and it'll clear it all up. We can also look at other files. I often use cat with small text files that have little bits of instruction, so I don't have to memorize everything, and I can just look up things really quickly in a directory full of notes. In this case, we have clock.txt. I put this here because it shows yet another command. Here we can see date being ran again. What watch is a program that will run a command over and over again based on the time you give it. In this case, we're giving it every 1 second. I think the default is 2, but it can be adjusted with these arguments. And every 1 second it will run date plus this argument here. And there we have a clock. Not every text file is small enough to fit on the screen with cat. If we give it something that is bigger, it will just keep scrolling until it is done. In this case, we might want to use a few different programs to display text. Head is a command that will show by default the first 10 lines of a text file. We can change this with arguments like -n, and 5 will give us the first 5 instead of the first 10. Or if we go up there and make that 15, we'll get the first 15. Maybe we want the last part of the file. Instead of head, we can run tail. And again, if we give it a file name, it will give us the last 10 by default. And again, we can give it an argument like -n and 20, and there we'll get the 20 lines. But what about if you want to see the whole text file? You don't want to open it up in a text editor for some reason. For that, we have more. With more, we get this interface here. And if you try to hit your arrow keys up and down, it probably won't work. If you hit the H key, you'll get the help here. And we can read this and see a little bit of instructions. There are arguments that you can pass in. The default value would be in the brackets, and then the star indicates that the argument that you pass in would become the new default for the bracket. So what does that mean? Well, we see here that if we hit Z, it'll jump the current screen size, and if we hit return, it'll just go up 1 line. So if I hit Z, the whole page scrolls up. So right now our bottom number is 83. Now our top number is 84. On the other hand, if we hit enter, we'll go line by line. To pass in an argument, let's say 5, you type that in first and then Z. Now Z will only do 5 lines every time we hit Z. The thing is more is a rather old program, and someone at one point realized that less is more. And so for that, we have less.txt. Despite being called less is capable of doing more. If we look at the help file, we can see that clearly. Here we see that it's a lot more of the screen. In fact, it's scrolling how much you can do here. But it does everything that more does. So enter goes by 1 line, Z will go by a full page. And we can do the same thing where we can give it a number and then hit Z. And now Z will only do that number instead. The goal for this video was to show how to do some useful things in Bash. Again, they're easy and easy to understand, easy to do. But I'm hoping that from the things that we've looked at here, we can build on to doing more complex things. Right now we're staying on one computer, but Bash makes it really easy to start bringing computers together. Right now we're doing everything manually, but Bash makes it really easy to start scripting things. We will look at scripting things, some of the things that we've done already in this video. I hope the takeaway from this is that with the same ease of use as the first video shows, we can do even more. And I hope that the promise that we'll do even more complex things just as easily in the future will keep you coming back. If you have any questions about this topic or any of the other topics covered in this channel, feel free to ask in the comments, and thanks for watching.